We're back, baby. Horns up, talking Texas podcast. Fisher to Sopolis. The Texas Longhorns lose in the Cotton Bowl, unfortunately, 28-14. In a score I think doesn't tell the whole tale. I think, as Longhorn Nation knows, doesn't tell the whole tale. Ewers, I think the narrative around him, unfortunately, because of those last 3 minutes, is going to be different than what it should have been the whole game. And I guess, that is what it is, right? You got to play a complete game of football, and unfortunately he didn't. I felt he quarterbacked pretty nicely, especially in the second half. He hit Golden on that big throw after Gunnar Helm had a senseless penalty on a big catch, pointing to Caleb Downs after he stiff-armed and lost us 15 yards. Golden comes back into the game, hits him on a nice throw. We work our way to the goal, and 2 PI calls. We try it with Gibson, doesn't work. And then Sark comes in and just simply gets way too cute with the play call, throws it to Wisner on a pitch on the outside. We lose 6 yards. And that completely changes the dynamic of the offense, the dynamic of the situation. Now it's 3rd and long on goal. The 3rd down play incomplete, and then the sack fumble for a touchdown, which seals the game. Forget the interception at the end of the game, the floater to Caleb Downs that he picks off. The game was over. The game was done. We weren't coming back. It was over. We weren't beating that team.
It's a two-score game at that point. Look, we've talked about it before.
Left.
Not every interception is the same. When you're down 2 scores, you only have 2 timeouts. The clock's against you. You have to force throws. You have to make something happen. And at that point, you're absolutely right. The game was already over. But I agree with you. The final score of 28-14 does not tell the story of how close this game actually was. How evenly matched these 2 opponents were. Yes, they covered the spread, so I guess if you're in Ohio State better, you feel good about it. But I imagine you were probably sweating for a lot of the game. Look, you got to give – this is the Horns Up Talking Texas show. This is the Texas Football Podcast. We have to give massive props to the Texas football program for now in 2 years – has gotten to the semifinal of the college football playoff 2 times. This year in the expanded playoff, 12 teams make it. We played 2 really tough games against quality opponents in a year where
champions.
Both conference champions of the ACC and the Big 12 respectively, after playing a gritty overtime loss game against the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC championship. And then we play one of the nation's hottest teams, the team that dominated the Oregon Ducks, who were undefeated up until that point.
They're the hottest team. They decimated the
team who dominated the Tennessee Volunteers, a team that, for all intents and purposes, a lot of people didn't really give us a shot against. And yes, like crazy statistic of how many games we were the odds betting favorite in a row before this game. I think it's north of 20 games that the Texas football team and program has been a betting favorite before playing this Ohio State Buckeyes team and being, plus 5.5 pretty much up until game. And we held our own. And ultimately, I think anybody who knows football can say that they watched a game with at least 25 guys who are going to be playing in the National Football League next year. And then that's not even talking about the guys who aren't even draft eligible. So much talent in this game. And we have to, give the laud and praise that our team deserves for getting this far, of course. But we're heartbroken. I mean, with the result that happened, because as we felt in the SEC championship game, when you know that you're across from a team and you guys are punching at the same weight class, you know that any little thing and any small margin can be the decider in who wins and who loses. And in this game, in my opinion, I think our coaching failed us. And I don't think that word's I don't think that word's too critical, because I think you explained very aptly the thought process and the procedures that failed us on the goal line when we got there. If you're on the 1, look, first off, I don't really like the Gibson call, because to me, if I'm the opposite defensive coordinator, that's a clear indicator that he's getting the ball. We've shown that he doesn't come into the game a lot. It's not a guy that we mix in. So if he's getting in there, there's a good opportunity that he's at least going to get a touch. Fine. I have no problems with us trying to run the football from the one, though.
Let's go for it. He's your goal line back. I mean, it's an app play
I
that happens all the time. You
I
look,
I
but
get it.
that's where we get too quick and fancy with the spices. Sometimes you got to bring your goal line back in and just go for it, and that was
But
fine. I have
but
no
but here's
problem
but
with
here's
that.
I think it's a complete I think it's stacking of getting too cute again and again and again. And I think that the Gibson thing is the first indicator to me because why aren't you giving the ball to Trey Wisner, who has fought for 2, 3, 4 yards the entire game against a really tough Ohio State front? That guy, his contact balance, the way that he fights between the tackles, he's seeing the defensive line of the Ohio State Buckeyes the entire game. And to ask Jarek Gibson to go in there and automatically be playing at 100% game speed, it's a tremendously difficult thing for him to do. Okay, so I don't love that play, but I like that we ran the ball there. Not too many complaints. But to go away from the QB sneak, running it again between the tackles, even throwing it again to Matthew Golden with a one-on-one matchup are all better options than a halfback toss against a team you have not been able to run on the outside against the entire game, against a team that has playmakers like Caleb Downs, who's one of the best defensive playmakers in college football, not to mention all the talent they have at the linebacker position, at the edge position. It makes no sense. And then additionally, not even to have enough blockers on the side that you want to pitch the ball to play one-on-one matchup football and actually give your guy a chance on the outside. I you can't give me any reasoning, and I'm sure there's going to be questions asked to start. We're recording soon after the game, so we're not seeing the post-game pressers. They're going to ask him, and he's going to come up with an answer. I don't see any world where I am able to listen to that and reasonably say, okay, that makes sense. You can't make it make sense to me.
Arch Manning
Which you had
got a first
already which you had already used successfully earlier to get a 6-7 yard gain on a QB option where you had Gunner under center and you run that little trick play.
Wisner, like you're saying, Wisner's whole game today was 2 yards, 3 yards, like just punching in, extending drives, just like getting the ball going on drives. He wasn't breaking anything really. He went 17-46. Another under 3 yards a carry game for Wisner. He wasn't breaking anything off, but you need 1 yard. Wisner, Arch Manning. I don't even mind going Gibson again. At that point, they know it's coming. Just go for it. Gunnar Helm under center. Even Ewers on the QB sneak. Any play you could have run was better than the pitch outside, like you're saying, where we give open season to their best playmakers. They have Sawyer on the edge. They have Caleb Downs. They have Cody Simon. They have guys. How many guys on the defense? Like you said, they're all going to be pros. All of them. Both corners, the safety, everyone on the defensive line, and Cody Simon is going to be a pro. This team is stock full of pros. They score. You respond. You take it down to the 1 yard line, and that becomes the entire narrative of the game. And it's so frustrating that was Quinn Ewers' last drive, or second to last drive, I should say, in Burnt Orange.
Sure.
Those 3 minutes changed his entire life. If he ties the game, then he's led this team to at least tie the game. I don't know what happens if we go to overtime. If they go down and score, they win regardless. He's at least tied the game and had a good quarterback game. And his final snap may have been in Burnt Orange. Now he's probably not going to be able to go to the draft. He's going to have to transfer somewhere, and it completely taints the narrative of Quinn Ewers, who, like you said, led us to our first 2 college football playoffs into the semifinals both times, second in the 12-team playoff.
In the CFP era, right? Yep.
And I'm so, as a Quinn supporter and a Quinn believer and a guy that has stood his ground on Quinn Ewers the entire season, his entire tenure as a Longhorn, like and lifted him up on his good plays as much as people have dragged him down on his bad plays. It is so frustrating to see him go out this way. Because I genuinely really don't think it's his. I mean, we're in group text, everyone's blaming him. I'm like, it is Sark, man. Like, that was a terrible play call. And Sark called a pretty good game, like both wheel routes to Blue that scored. Those were great play calls. Those are great execution by Quinn. The Gunnar Helm one-on-one was a great pass by Quinn. Again, Gunnar Helm not utilized enough in this game for my liking. The defense played really strong, but it's a game where every second matters, and you're in a heavyweight matchup. Like, if you want to talk about the play that we're not even discussing yet, it's 7-7, 30 seconds before the half. And you give up a 75-yard touchdown to Travion Henderson?
Yeah.
Like PK had such a good game, had such a good season, then you're asleep at the wheel for 30 seconds before half and they capitalize on that?
Yeah, it's one
Otherwise,
of
the
the
game's at 14s, man.
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I don't I want to come up with a defense for our coaching staff because they're consummate professionals. PK as a defensive coordinator, Sark as an offensive play caller, and they're two of the best in the
I
business
mean, we're here.
at what they do. Right, we're in the college football semifinal. This is an incredibly well coached team on the opposite side. Again, I've already talked about the talent, but to answer to have your defense be able to stifle them for pretty much the entirety of the first half, outside of that first drive where they kind of picked you apart, which was your game plan, by the way. You wanted to run zone coverage. Ohio State had been dominating man coverage because they have some of the best offensive playmakers in college football. So you said we will make Will Howard pick us apart, and that's what he did on that first drive, right? And Egbuka was a part of that, and he caught 3 first down balls on that first drive. And they weren't going for 15 plus, they were going for 8, and they were going for 12, and they were able to put 7 on the board there. But to not drop back in shell coverage with that little of time on the clock in the second quarter, you just scored at the end of the half. It's tied. It's all tied up. Your defense is feeling hot. Your offense got some points on the board. All of a sudden here, this is a real game. And if your defense gets one stop at the beginning of the second half, you've got the ball and you've got a chance to go up 14-7. And to blitz a DB and a linebacker in that, you're just getting greedy. You don't need to do that. Trust your guys. Trust your talent. Trust the guys that you've seen the entirety of the season. And I think he just got greedy there, and I think it was a massive mistake, and it was a great call on the opposite side by one of the best offensive play callers the game of football has ever seen. Forget college football, forget the NFL. Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly is a mastermind, an offensive mastermind. He is going to make you pay. Same thing that he made you pay with coming out of that timeout, and he runs a QB blast right up the middle. Like, sometimes window dressing is just that. Just because Jeremiah Smith's out there doesn't mean they're going to give him the ball.
He had
And
one catch for 3
he had
yards.
he had one catch, and then all of a sudden they run trips to the right side, and we forget that their QB is 6'5" and can lumber forward for a first down. And all of a sudden we have Michael Taft scrambling, and it should have been even uglier. They should have already gotten at the end zone. Of course, they end up scoring on that Quinshon Jenkins push in from 2 yards. He ran tough tonight. He didn't get a ton of opportunity, but he ran tough. Like, how do you not see that coming on 4th and 2, 4th and 3?
I mean, like I felt we were better prepared pre-timeout.
I agree.
We call the time, and then now that's another timeout we don't have in our back pocket, which makes that last drive like whatever. Because
Yeah, I thought our guys, look, it's a coach's job to put the players in the position to make plays. And I thought that there were a few opportunities where they didn't put our guys in the best position to succeed tonight. And that's why I say it's harsh language to say that they failed our guys, but I'm talking about like unique moments. I'm not talking about the entire game because obviously like the game plan is on the shoulders of Sark, and then it's connected to Quinn to then execute. But, to tie the game, to go 14-14, like Quinn made, if you're an NFL scout, I know, like you said earlier, you don't think he's going, you think he's going to transfer. He had a conversation with Pete Demel prior to this game that he wants to go to the NFL draft. I think he's still going to do that. I think he's demonstrated that between the years, when he's not rattled, he can make decisions that a lot of guys can't make.
I
That
even
that a
think when
lot.
he's rattled, he comes back nicely.
Yeah,
Like
I do.
he's a good goldfish memory. I mean, like, look, the real issue for me with Quinn, too many padded down balls. And I will say this in his defense, his pressure awareness in the first half was awful. I mean, you were in our group text talking about like, are we going to see a butt fumble tonight? Because he is stepping up incorrectly into the pocket and rather than evading pressure, running towards it. Completely changes his narrative in the second half. He's seeing pressure infinitely better. He has that amazing underhand flip to Wisner. He has another play to Blue where he evades the pressure and hits him on the outside. And Blue goes for a few yards and scampers up for a few yards. He had a really strong second half. I believe he's a pro. I believe if you're maybe not first round, if you're in the second round in Seattle Seahawks, for God's sakes, take him, sit him behind Geno for 2 years. I just, it's just the padded balls are frustrating. I mean, he threw a beautiful ball to Bond, killed the drive that he dropped.
Yeah.
Isaiah Bond like killed the drive. I mean, Golden was in and out of the lineup. They made it work. I really
Yeah,
don't feel this falls. I'm not blaming Quinn on this one, man. I can't do it.
no,
I'm
no, no,
sorry.
no. I don't think you should. I mean, I think like I'm not going to say he played a perfect game. There was a conversion throw that he needed to make to Golden that was too high. There was another throw to Golden that was too high. The throw where Gunnar Helm takes a lick because the ball is too high, and then everyone wanted to, review that play because it's a potential defenseless receiver. That play doesn't happen. That hit doesn't happen if he puts it on the money, he puts it between the numbers, and Gunnar Helm is probably breaking that tackle and turning around and getting a couple extra yards. He's not
Sure.
perfect. The inconsistencies, I think, if you're really talking football, that's what's frustrating with him. Some of the decision making, again, like you said, to not tuck it and run. We saw it was 3rd and 10. We were basically left for dead. He tucks and runs, and he gives us an opportunity to be in that fourth and half a yard, 4th and yard, where then we go for it with Arch Manning. Look, when Quinn tells himself, "Hey, I need to go get this with my legs," he's actually got a little bit of boost. He's got a little bit of jets, and he's a tough guy. He's a tough runner. Like we've seen it time and time again. I think he's had 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns in the last 4 to 5 games of the season. So it's there. It's just, the building the confidence in himself and of course in his physicality, and it's directly tied with health as well. I mean, you look at this game and you look at sometimes what we were putting out there on offense from a skill position standpoint. Of course, we're already dealing this entire season without the guy that was supposed to be our starting running back, CJ Baxter, right? And then at times, we miss a lot of Golden in this game. Bond doesn't even make the start, right? He ends up playing in this game, but obviously he's rusty. He has that massive drop where he jumps where he doesn't need to. Herbstreit's on the call talking about it. You
What
could
he's
tell he was
doing.
rusty. You could tell he's a step behind what we've seen him and what he has been earlier in the season. You've got a freshman Ryan Wingo out there. Gunnar Helm underutilized, you could say, but I could also point out, like, look, this Ohio State defense is really, really good, and they have a
Ohio State
lot of
defense
guys,
is excellent,
and
man.
they obviously want to shut down a guy like Gunnar Helm. We've got DeAndre Moore, who's still young in his career, it was an excellent contributor this year. We don't have Jonte Cook anymore. You've got Bolden, who's out there running routes, who's really our return man and our gadget guy. Okay, not a guy who's getting 5 to 7 touches per game. Like realistically, we're out there running our offense without our like top guys, like for the majority of this football game. I know Golden comes back in the fourth quarter, but we missed about 2 quarters of him. And he's been our go-to guy. And Bond's not healthy. He was our wide receiver one coming into the season. Like to look at this game and not evaluate based off of who we had going out there from a personnel standpoint would not be telling the entire story of this game. I'm not saying that if all those guys had been healthy, we would have won this game, but it's an additional thing that Quinn has to deal with. It's an additional hamper that makes Sark's job even tougher as a play caller, which maybe gets it into his mind as to why he has to get so cute with the spices later when we get to the goal line. It's not something that I think should be defended. But again, I understand where they're coming from. And if you look at the other side, it's Will Howard. They've got both their running backs. Okay, like they had some offensive line woes, but they still had Ibuka out there. They still had Tate out there. They still had
Carnell Tate
Jeremiah
was great.
Smith out there. Like they were a more healthy team than us. I thought that showed. I thought we held our own given the circumstances, and unfortunately, it just didn't go our way. And this is a team that I think a lot of people expect to rout Notre Dame. Now, look, Notre Dame's an incredibly well-coached football team, and they are tough as nails. I think you're going to get a much better game than people expected out of the two of those teams, and maybe it's going to be talked about before we actually see that matchup. But I think we gotta hold our heads high. And at the end of the day, like I don't want Quinn Ewers to be indicted again, like you're mentioning, for his last throw that he made, for some of the errances that he made throughout the entire season this year, because he in the college football playoff era, he's the only guy that's gotten us to 2 semifinals. And I'd be
He,
remiss if I didn't give him the props that he deserves for that.
and he played. I thought he played well. I'm sorry, I'll say it. I thought he played well. And you're right. You know what? This Ohio State team, no one gave us a chance. Everyone thought we were going to get crushed. They smacked the crap out of Oregon. They beat the Tennessee game was not even a game. Neither was the Oregon game, quite frankly. Sonny Styles, safety's excellent. Tumalo is fantastic. Sawyer, obviously great. Talik Williams, the defensive lineman, had a tip ball. Great athlete on the interior, gave us fits all night. They have a heck of a defense, man. And we stood toe to toe with them. And it came down to the very end with this team that on paper, like you're saying, you listed all these healthy guys. I mean, you got to give them credit. They piecemealed together an offensive line at the end of the season, and it worked. Donovan Jackson shifting over to left tackle, he was great. We started getting pressure in the second half. Like everything was really flowing our way. Vern Broughton had a great game. Gabenda had a fantastic game. Gilbo, who never gets any praise, except for I feel like on our show, was in every play I felt. Like Jade had some great hits. Like the defense played really strong. I mean, the team we lost to was a really great team. It's just a really great team, and on paper, like they were the favorite going into the season. Like it's no surprise Ohio State's in the national championship. They're supposed to be there.
Yeah.
I think that, like I think what stings the most, if we had come in here tonight and we're like, all right, we got blown out 35-0. The Ohio State offense and defense is incredible. They beat the crap out of us. They're the best team in college football, no brainer. Like we got absolutely smacked. Quinn Ewers not the guy. Sark not ready. Bad game. Like if that was the case, it'd be a little more cut and dry and almost a little less painful. I think the painful aspect is those things about Ohio State ring true to me still. They are the best team. And we're in the 12th round with them. And we're trading blows. It's the end of Rocky 1, where, wait a second, he's got Apollo Creed, and Apollo Creed is hurting. He's about to take down the champ. And we just couldn't deliver the knockout blow. And I think that's what stings the most. And you said it, like you said it correctly. I think it was like at minute 6. Like Sark can give an answer for why he called that play, and it's never going to be acceptable to me. It just doesn't make sense. I hate to be an armchair coach, but we all know it. Like everyone watching is like, what is that play call? You are so much better than that. You've proven to be so much better than that. We have so much at our disposal. Like that's what stings the most is it comes down to one or two plays. And I feel like for us as Texas fans and guys covering the team, every time we lament about the Texas Longhorns, it's always one or two plays. It's never like, we got the shit kicked out of us. It's never like that. It just isn't like that. I mean, there's so many guys like Vern, he's your guy all season, Vern Broughton. He was great. He had a sack. He was a really strong player tonight. Like I can't sing our guys' praises, and Makuba is such a hard-hitting safety, man. Like it's such a shame like that we lose on that last play because there's so many guys we fell in love with on this squad. There's so many guys that were excellent all season. There's so many guys, like you're saying, that are going to go pro, and quite frankly, are going to go pro higher in a draft slot than they were going to heading into the season. Think about every one of the guys that's going to get drafted on our team. Jahdae Barron wasn't considered to be a first-round pick going into the year. Makuba wasn't considered to be a day 2 pick going into the year. Taft wasn't considered to be drafted. Alfred Collins wasn't supposed to be a second-round pick. Maybe a 6th-rounder if he plays well. Matthew Golden wasn't a top 10 wide receiver ranked on Mel Kiper's board going into it. The only one draft stock dropped, quite frankly, is Quinn Ewers. And we said it all season. Like, I love Trey Wisner. Like, he played a heck of a year for us. Blue, great in the receiving game. Both of them great in the receiving game. And Wisner had some really big running games. But against Georgia, against Arizona State, against Ohio State, Sands, the couple of times where he picked up those couple yards to keep the drives alive or get the drives going a little bit, he wasn't effective. We don't have a running back like they do. We don't have Travion Henderson. We don't have who we kind of stymied. We don't have Judkins who we kind of stymied. I mean, they got the ball to him in the passing game a lot at the end of the game and really worked him in. But we gave their run game a really tough day. Their best run play was outside of because it was a pass. Their best run play was the Will Howard 4th and 3 QB sneak. We gave their run game a really tough day. And this team, like, if we had Baxter, sure, I think things would be different. It's just like there's so many little things about this team, and there's so many things in the festering in the back of the minds of Longhorn Nation of like, this is the team. This could have been the team to get us that national championship on paper. Like, it was such a good, fun team. But I will say this: we have Arch, we have Hill, we have Simmons. We're in a group text. We're like, we're losing 15 guys to the draft. We lost 15 guys to the draft last year. That's what these good programs do.
Yeah,
you are a great program. You lose a bunch of guys to the draft, and you come back next year. And we are that program. We have guys coming back. We have young offensive tackles coming in. We have receivers coming up. We have Baxter coming back. We have Arch Manning. We have good defensive guys still there. Sark's not going anywhere. PK's not going anywhere. Like, we still have a lot in place that this Texas team, quite frankly, people say our schedule is soft. Great. We play the same schedule next year pretty much, except for Ohio State, who has to retool a little bit. And we'll see how they do that. I feel props to our team. They did well. I think what stings is like the fact that it comes down to like these 1 or 2 plays when we lose every time.
Yeah, it's always tough when you know you could win, right?
Yeah.
Like and again, like I thought save a few huge explosive plays, which very well could just be the distinction between these two teams. Their aptitude for explosive plays when they needed to pull them out, this Ohio State team, kind of defines them, especially based off of who their playmakers are. Like, again, Wisner's a really good running back between the tackles, but he doesn't have the same explosive ability as a guy like Judkins. Blue does, but Blue's not quite as good between the tackles as a guy like Judkins. But they also have Trevion Henderson, right? Both of which who are not only really explosive and really talented running backs, but also like veteran running backs who have been doing this at the highest level of college football for quite some time.
They've been number ones. Like, when Judkins transferred from Ole Miss, it's like, oh my God, they have a number 1 running back, and now they're getting Ole Miss's number 1 running back.
Right. And then Igbuka, a guy who a lot of people thought could have been a first rounder last year. Okay, he falls a little bit down people's boards, but then he's still on this team, right? They even lost Julian Fleming, and no big deal because they've got Tate, they've got Jeremiah Smith. Like, it's and I thought all that to say, like, I thought PK called a pretty good game. Again, like I mentioned on that first drive, it was okay, we're going to play a lot of zone because we don't want to match up man-to-man because your playmakers are going to beat us on the outside. Smith's going to win that matchup if you give him the opportunities and Howard wants to throw him the ball. And so what ended up happening was we were making them dink and dunk. We made their tight end, whose name is escaping me, like, beat us. And you got to give him credit on that one play where he fought for 4 extra yards. That put him in a position. I thought he was pretty meh, honestly. I thought we did a good job of maintaining him.
He was good for what he typically is, though. He's not like an effective guy.
Yeah. But that's what a good defensive play caller does. You say, okay, Tate, okay, Carnell Tate, you're the wide receiver 3. I'm gonna make you catch the ball 8 times for 80+ yards and beat me. And guess what he did? Okay, he had a really good game. But if that means that Jeremiah Smith's not having 180 yards coming into this game, what was Jeremiah Smith's stats through 2 games? I mean, he had like 3 touchdowns and like
everyone's talking about him being the first overall pick if he's coming out this year. The guy is like,
he caught 1 pass, and that's what a good defense can do. You can hamper what another team does best. So I think the defensive game plan of putting in the zone did that. And then eventually, what did Will Howard do? He got tired of the dink and dunk, and he tried to force a throw. And he forced a throw to Jeremiah Smith, and it went right into David Benda's hands. And then we were going the opposite way. Now, the problem was we turned that into a punt. We turned that into a 3 and out, as opposed to taking advantage of that one turnover. Jack Sawyer gets that strip sack against Quinn Ewers, and then Quinn Ewers throws that interception. Those are with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. No other turnovers happen in the game except the interception. And when you can't turn that into points, and when you can't turn that into field position, that's where you're failing. And unfortunately, I thought our play calling was a huge factor in that, because we threw the ball on first down when we got the interception. Then we ran the ball 2 times in a row. Actually, excuse me, I'm incorrect. We ran the ball twice. We ran the ball ineffectively for a no gain, and then we ran it again when we were 2nd and 10 for another no gain. And then at that point, we were behind the sticks, 3rd and 10. I'll talk about, I mentioned that play where Quinn ran for 9.5 yards, and then we punch it forward and convert that 4th down. I thought in the first quarter, I thought we were undisciplined in this game. I thought our offensive line, once again, especially Cam Williams on the outside at the right tackle position, just put us in positions where he didn't give us the best chance to succeed for our offense. And that matters early
when you're trying
to build some rhythm for your quarterback, who's a rhythm thrower in an RPO type style offense, to keep the DBs at bay so that you can actually run the football, which is unnecessary for Sark's offensive game plan to work. And we're putting ourselves behind the chains. We're never going to win games against the best teams in college football. And like, look, everyone can say what they want to say. Just is kind of doubling back on what you were talking about, when what certain people have criticisms of. This was our time. This was our year. Like you said, if you're a blue blood, every year needs to be your year. You need to win the portal. You need to recruit at the best of. You need to recruit the best of the best, and you need to have your players advance and get experience in game and also in the preseason and the off season where they're ready to play at an All American level. And hopefully that's what Arch Manning has for this upcoming season if he's our quarterback. But like, don't you think that Notre Dame, don't you think that Penn State, don't you think that Ohio State is saying the exact same thing as we are? This is our year. If you're in the last 4 teams, it's a 12-team playoff. Of course you think it's your year, and you should, but it doesn't mean that any of these other teams, it wasn't their year either, right? Like come on. Like if Carson Beck's still healthy, who knows? If Gunnar Stockton gets brought in earlier in the season and actually has more time to develop with their offense, who knows? Could it have been there? Like,
I mean, Oregon,
right? Everybody thought it was their year. They were undefeated. They got their ass waxed. Like, come on. Like, this is college football. It's
I think that's actually probably why I'm maybe most frustrated too, is like listening to some of our fans and the negativity. It's like, we were right there, man. Like, we had a good game.
we lost to a good football team who outcoached us. How can I be that upset about that? As a fan,
I think I'm more upset about with the fan. I'm more upset with the fan base and the text I'm in. I'm like, Quinn Ewers sucks and this. I'm like, dude, we got there. We had one bad play call and we got there. Like that again, it's just frustrating. But I mean, so many guys had a great season, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they were penalized too heavily, quite frankly.
Oh, for sure. And it helped us get our defense gained a lot of momentum, rhythm, and established themselves. And then we started winning at the line of scrimmage. And our defensive line started to eat. And our defensive line started to force their piecemealed offensive line, as you mentioned, to commit penalties, some holding calls. Let's also not forget they convert on that 4th and 2, but there's a play earlier in that drive where it's 3rd and 10, and there is a severe hold, so egregious, in fact, that Kirk Herbstreit not only calls it, a former Buckeye, Kirk Herbstreit, alumnus of the Ohio State University, says it on the play, and then they slow-mo replay the hold where Colin Simmons beats the right tackle, and they don't call it. That's the kind of stuff that can determine games when teams are this close. And unfortunately, we've had some penalties go our way this season, no doubt. But it hurts when you see that happen when it could have made a big difference. There's also a really, really bad defensive holding call on the left sideline that we didn't call. That Wingo right in front of the ref that we didn't get, that would have extended a drive. Like that happens. There's a lot of missed penalties, but those they stung a little bit extra, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll close out saying this. Like, you talked about them being a big play team. We outgained them in big plays, man. Wingo had a 20-yard. He had one catch, 20 yards. Bolden had a big play. Like, we outgained them in big plays. Blue had multiple big plays. Helm. Everyone, Golden, like, they all had big plays. Players played well. Man. That's a tough team. Like, no one was stopping that Buckeyes team. And we gave them their best test.
Sports, as defeating as they can be, they're also they're beautiful. Like sports are it's a beautiful game, football and other sports as well. I mean, you literally, like, it's movie script stuff. When Jack Sawyer, freshman roommate of Quinn Ewers, beats our right tackle, strip sack, takes it to the house. Like, you literally, I'm the Texas Longhorn fan. I wanted us to win that game, but you can't convince me that that's not like a storybook ending for this Ohio State Buckeyes team. If they don't win the national championship now, it's like, what's the point, really?
I mean, if they don't beat Notre Dame, absolutely livid.
But I how does that happen? How are those guys freshman year roommates? And then that happens on 4th and goal to end the game. You literally, they're scripted. Like, you can't convince me otherwise that sports aren't scripted, because that's crazy. That's crazy.
And Caleb Downs, the pick at the end of the game. Yeah.
Well, that honestly that's like a giving a really good player like a stat that he didn't even deserve. I mean, tracking the eyes and then finding the ball on that one was like, I think they were almost
I mean,
giving him
that was
too much
he
credit.
saw that thing come up. Well, yeah, he had that.
Sure, but like Quinn Ewers put it, you could have caught that ball. Let's come on.
Yeah.
Well, I believe in you.
We'll lament with Quanton, who was at the game, and Nick next week, but we had to get a reaction out. Good season. Disappointing end. Good game, disappointing end. 2 bad ends of the half. That's it. That'll do it to you. But a lot of guys had a really great year. A lot of guys that we're really proud of. Gunnar Helm, I didn't list in those guys that race his draft stock, but he's in that group. A lot of guys had really strong years, and so this is a team to be proud of. And this is another unfortunate, though it's not a championship team, it's another great building block. Look, 2 semifinals and a 12-team playoff. We held court. Fisher to Sopolis. We'll see you guys later. We'll see you another time.
Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.